Off with the Mexican-American War when President James K. Polk was very frustrated about his inability to acquire California, his inability to claim the disputed region of Texas, because Mexico, what did Mexico think the border between the United States and Mexico should be? Anybody remember? All right, Mexico thought it should be the Nueces River, which is a little bit farther north. America thought it should be the Rio Grande River, which is the present day border. Okay, so that means that there is going to be an area of land that is disputed. Mexico thinks it belongs to them. America thinks it belongs to them. So what James K. Polk does is he orders troops led by General Zachary Taylor to march from the Nueces River on our side to cross that river and march to the Rio Grande. If you are the Mexican government, how do you view this action? An invasion, right? As in they have crossed the border of the Nueces River, what you think is the border, with troops, and those troops are now marching through your land with bad intent. And that's exactly how the Mexican government saw it. Was James K. Polk able to do this without a war declaration? He was, because he believed, along with the rest of America, that this was the border. When Mexico thought this was the border, the Nueces River. Okay, so he sent troops down to the border of the Rio Grande, and he kind of was expecting violence to occur. And when that violence occurred, then he could ask Congress, hey, declare war, let's go get them, let's go invade them. But then nothing happened. Like Mexico just kind of they stayed on their side, and nothing really happened. All right, and then he still asks Congress to declare war, even though no violence occurs. And he asks Congress for this war declaration on a couple of bases. First, Mexico owed us money. So let's go beat them up and get it. And take it from them in the form of land. Unpaid claims. And they insulted us. James K. Polk says, I sent a fine Spanish-speaking ambassador to Mexico City and offered to pay millions of dollars for California, and they wouldn't even hear him, wouldn't even talk to him. How rude. So let's go kill people, right? You guys think it's a good idea? No? But, well, I mean, 1840s America, these are brown people. These are Catholic people. Let's go get them, right? That's kind of how America saw it, your average American, okay? So, but at best, unpaid claims, Slidell's rejection, these are flimsy at best. Flimsy claims at best. So, really, what Congress responded to James K. Polk is like, we would feel better about this if there were some actual violence. And that very evening, as fate would have it, news of bloodshed had arrived. On April 25th, 1846, Mexican troops crossed the Rio Grande River and attacked Taylor's command with a loss of about 16 Americans killed or wounded. So then Polk was able to boast and boast when he was asking for a declaration of war in Congress that despite all our efforts to avoid a clash, hostilities had been forced upon us and forced upon our country by the shedding of American blood on American soil. And that was his claim, that American blood had been spilled. Well, there was a young congressman in the House of Representatives from Illinois named Abraham Lincoln. And Abraham Lincoln was not entirely sure that President Polk was on the up and up and being open and honest with the facts. And so he proposed a series of spot resolutions, meaning he wants President Polk to go to a map and show him the spot where American blood had been spilled on American soil. I want to know the spot. Is it here? Is it here? Is it here? Because this is disputed territory. All this gray area is disputed. And if it just so happens that the blood is spilled here, well, is that American soil? If it's spilled here, it's pretty no doubt. Definitely if it's here, there's not American soil. Abraham Lincoln says, I want to know. I want to know, and he does so with a great amount of persistence, that, I want to know where this happened. So Lincoln was actually kind of ridiculed for these resolutions, and he got the nickname Spotty Lincoln. Spotty Lincoln. Luckily, that does not stick. Okay, so the violence does occur. It does happen. It does happen on the banks of the Rio Grande in the disputed territory. But was this war, do you think it was provoked? Do you think it was provoked intentionally? How? Somebody explain to me how this man provokes war with Mexico. James K. Polk. He marched an army down to the border of Rio Grande, right? Mexico thought it belonged to them, right? So they see it as an invasion, right? Is this a provocation? Yes. What if like a foreign country invaded Virginia and they invaded all the way into like Richmond? Like, we think this belongs to us. You think we're just going to be like, okay, you guys can march around wherever you want? Do you think that might provoke us into action? Yeah, they're not going to get off the beach, okay? Like, they won't make it very far because them's fighting words, all right? And that's how Mexico saw it. Those are fighting words. So James K. Polk definitely provokes the war. Why? Why does he want to fight with Mexico? Why? What does he want? The land. He wants California. He wants all this area of Texas. He wants the Rio Grande to be the border between the United States and Mexico. He wants Arizona. He wants New Mexico. He wants Utah. He wants Nevada. He wants California. He wants the United States to be a coast-to-coast nation. Why? What was the... There we go. Manifest destiny. It is our God-given destiny. God says that America has to be a coast-to-coast nation, no matter what. And that was the thinking of many Americans, in particularly James K. Polk, big-time manifest destiny guy. So, he was very much an expansionist, and he was willing to do it in any way possible, including bullying. Like, he was a bully. He bullied Mexico into war. So Polk wanted California, and once the bloodshed began to happen, it really wasn't much of a war. All right, like it was a whooping, big time. Okay, and a lot of that is due to the efforts of General Zachary Taylor, whose nickname was Old Rough and Ready. He looks old rough and ready, doesn't he? He got his nickname because of his he has an iron constitution. He's a stand-up guy. You can always count on him. He's reliable. And he's incredibly unsoldierly in his appearance. Hair's never combed. He was known to wear a big Mexican straw hat, like a sombrero made of straw, in uniform. Okay? So he was like, I just want to keep the sun off of me. This is a general. Okay? This is a general. All right? So very unsoldierly, but when it came to leading men into battle, extremely talented. Very talented. And he fought his way across the Rio Grande into Mexico, and then had several victories over the Mexican army in Mexican territory. I'm not going to go over each and every single battle, but there were several, and he wins most of them. Because of his prowess and success on the battlefield, this makes him a national hero, a war hero. So, can you guess what he becomes eventually? He becomes president because of his war record, just like people that came before him, Andrew Jackson, George Washington. All right, so General Zachary Taylor, known as Old Rough and Ready, repels a lot of Mexican fighting, and eventually America literally conquered all the way down to Mexico City. Mexico City. All right, just to give you an idea of where that is. Mexico City is like down in here, guys. Wait, can you see this? I know it's not in focus, but you see my laser pointer? That's a long way, okay? We conquered them. The United States, by all rights, could have this as the boundary between the United States and Mexico. It really could. We conquered this territory. We won it in battle. But a lot of this is desert, and so they didn't really want to have it that much. So when the time came to have armistice and stop the fighting, a treaty was signed, and that treaty that ends the Mexican-American War is called the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo. The Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo. It was signed on February 2nd, 1848, with Santa Anna. And the terms of this treaty are pretty breathtaking. First, it confirms the American title to Texas. So no longer Texas is a Mexican territory according to Mexico. It is now no longer part of Mexico and part of America. So that's one part. In addition, you can kind of follow my laser pointer here. All of this, all the way to the Pacific Ocean and down, is ceded to the United States. An area of land almost the size of the Louisiana Purchase is basically stolen from Mexico after the Mexican-American War. So we get California, we get Texas, and we get Nevada, Utah, Colorado, New Mexico, Arizona. All of this becomes Mexican or American territory, new territory. And under the reign of James K. Polk, the United States becomes a coast-to-coast nation, a continental nation. Manifest destiny fulfilled. This area of land constituted 1/2 of Mexico. We took half their nation in the Mexican-American War. Half of it. Imagine us going into a war and losing half our nation. Think that would be detrimental to us? Think it was detrimental to them? Yeah, not only did they fight, lose, have lots of death, they lost half their country. All right, so yeah, they're off to a rough start. The United States does agree to pay them $15 million. And the money that they owed us, those things that we said we were going to fight for, fight them for at the beginning, we just forgave all that. It's like $3 million. So, also, do you think there was a little bit of a guilty conscience? Hey, let's give them some money. We just literally have raped their entire land, took half their nation, killed their soldiers, conquered their capital city. Let's give them some money. I feel kind of bad. Because California, pretty awesome. Pretty awesome. Okay? So, yeah, there's a little bit of guilty conscience, the Anglo-Saxon spirit of fair play involved. But, as far as wars go, the Mexican-American War was a small one. About 13,000 Americans died. It doesn't, sounds like a good bit, but, there's been 500,000 people die of coronavirus. So that's in less than a year. This war lasted like 2 years and 13,000 people died. So, but it did cost 13,000 American lives. Most of them were not from fighting. Most of them were from disease, yellow fever, malaria. But the fruits of the fighting were enormous, as America's total expanse, which was already vast, a vast landscape, now, getting this land, which is greater than that of the Louisiana Purchase. The Mexican-American War is also important because it's like a schoolroom. It's like a schoolroom. When was this war fought? Yeah, 1846, 45, 46, 47. That's when it was fought. What's going to happen in like 12 years? 11 years, 12, 13 years. In the 1860s. What kind of war? The Civil War. The leaders, the people who were like lieutenants and sergeants and lower leveled officers were people like Robert E. Lee and Ulysses S. Grant. They fought in the Mexican-American War and got expertise and experience that helped to prepare them for when they were going to be generals in the Civil War, in the American Civil War. So it's kind of a schoolroom for the Civil War. The campaigns and the victories in Mexico provide like field experience for our future officers, like Captain Robert E. Lee and Lieutenant Ulysses S. Grant, both of whom graduated from West Point and use this experience to get ready for the Civil War. Okay? All right. This gentleman, whose name is David Wilmot. David Wilmot. Captain Buzzkill. Because everybody was so excited about all this new territory and land that America had just fought for and won a glorious battle. Well, he's got to go and ruin it by saying, hey, we're going to make a law that says no slavery in this land ever. And then everybody just turns on each other and begins the fighting again. Because slavery was always an issue. Always an issue. And David Wilmot says that any territory, and he wants to get this passed through Congress, which it never does. David Wilmot's from Pennsylvania. He was fearful of a slaveocracy because all this land, for the most part, is south of what line? Do you guys remember the line that was created in a compromise made by Henry Clay? The Missouri Compromise of 1820. Do you remember that? Where a line is drawn here and extends out this way. This is the line actually right here. Anything north of this will be free. Anything south of this has the opportunity for slavery. Look at all of this land that has opportunity to have slaves. So David Wilmot wants to get ahead of that because he's fearful of a slaveocracy, and he introduces an amendment to a bill. And that amendment is called the Wilmot Proviso, which stipulated that slavery should never exist in any territory gained from the Mexican territory. In any land that we got from Mexico, slavery should be banned there. Well, as you might imagine, this was a very disruptive amendment with a lot of heated debate. It passes in the House, but not in the Senate. Senators from the South were very much unwilling to be robbed of prospective slave states. And they fought the Wilmot Proviso tooth and nail. And the Wilmot Proviso never becomes law. It never becomes law. But it just shows how the Mexican-American War, you could almost make the argument that it's the beginning of the Civil War. Because, like the first bloodshed.
Teacher, sorry for the interruption, but there has been an issue with us trying to code attendance correctly with the virtual and stuff, the way they wanted us to update stuff. So your attendance is not being accepted into Weavis. So we're going to need you just for today to send each period your attendance to the office. I'm sorry for the hassle, but I'm trying to get this resolved right now. I appreciate it. Thanks.
Okay, so in a broad sense, the opening shots of the Mexican-American War were the opening shots of the Civil War. And President Polk leaves our nation with President Polk's legacy is pretty unique. Gains California and the entire Southwest. Also, the ugly moral issue of slavery is embittered in dispute as a result of the land acquired from the Mexican War. Even poets and writers like Ralph Waldo Emerson claim that Mexico will be the end of us because of the fighting and dissent that occurs over the new territory gained. So, the fighting and infighting that occurs over the next decade over this territory we gained from Mexico is called, we call it Santa Anna's Revenge, because it's kind of like it's our own undoing. Like we're infighting and fighting with ourselves over this territory. Okay, so I think that's a good place to stop for today. You guys have questions? Next time we'll talk about President Zachary Taylor.